Education should be something that helps a student do well in life, not just do well in academics. So what we said is that let's take the old Peter Drucker phrase that what can be measured can be managed. So let's come up with a definition of employability using parameters that can be measured and can be developed, because only if you have parameters that can be developed at a large scale and measured can you change the education system.
So today we have with us Dr. Akhil Shahani, Group CEO, Ask Careers, and Managing Director, the Shahani Group. An MBA from the Kellogg Graduate School of Management, Dr. Shahani's twin areas of focus are education and entrepreneurship. As a director of the Shahani Group, he is trying to bring international methods of management education to India through the group's various initiatives. Apart from his work with the many educational initiatives run by the family, he is also involved with the Kaizen Management Advisors Private Limited, a private equity firm investing in education, and also mentors young entrepreneurs in his spare time. Dr. Shahani is also the recipient of many awards like the Bharat Shiromani Award, the Bharat Gaurav Award, and the Indira Gandhi Priyadarshini Award, including mentions in the notable educational journals. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Shahani.
Thank you very much, Deepak.
And to begin with the conversation, so can you elaborate on the fundamental belief of the Shahani Group and how is it that it extends to the education and entrepreneurship that you tend to develop in the students that you are reaching out to?
Well, I'll tell you what, so I've always, through various experiences in my life, across the various companies I've worked with, I've always believed that education should be something that helps a student do well in life, not just do well in academics. In fact, I don't know if you've had that same experience. I went back to my 25th anniversary of my school reunion, and it's one of the top schools in India. And I discovered that people who were the toppers academically were not doing very well in life, but the backbenchers were doing very well. So we said, what's the disconnect, right? So we said that probably schools and colleges are not really teaching the right thing. How do you create an education system that makes people successful in life? So as part of that, I did my doctorate in education from University of Liverpool, and my area of focus was in the area of student employability. What makes someone employable? Because the biggest complaint about recruiters, not just in India but globally, is that most college graduates do not have employable skills when they graduate. They don't have the right job skills, they're not ready to be working. So what we said is that if you can make someone employable, you will actually give them the capabilities to do well in their career, and then by default, they will do well in life. That was the logic. So essentially what we believe in the Shahani Group, right from our not-for-profit entity, which is Sage Foundation, where we're helping a lot of underprivileged kids get jobs in the BFSI and other spaces, to our for-profit colleges, to the new fund that we're starting. We always want to promote education and skilling to make sure people do very well, make them employable, make them job ready, make sure they do well in life through getting great careers. So basically our focus is making people employable from the non-profit, for-profit space and the funding space to make them employable, get them jobs and scale up their careers essentially.
Perfect. And talking about the current initiatives, like you mentioned that the group already has a lot of initiatives in the particular group that you're working in. So can you just share a few of those and how are they working?
Okay, so start with the non-profit side. We have Sage Foundation, which is a not-for-profit foundation. We are working with grant funders like JP Morgan, a few other international funders, to actually who are funding us to support and train slum kids or kids from rural areas who come from the tier 2, tier 3 places. People who can't even speak English, sons of rickshawala, daughters of a domestic help, to get trained to within 30 days to 45 days to get jobs in banks or the BFSI sector or ITS with a short period of time, by focusing on what makes them employable, by imparting them the knowledge of banking, building up their personality, building up their communication, team working, proactiveness, critical thinking, and selling skills to get jobs in banks. And that has worked very well for us. We've got a 94% placement rate for these kids there. On the other hand, we also have our own Ask Careers platform, where we have a range of mobile apps across sectors like banking, digital marketing, MBA, real estate, hospitality, where people download these online courses and actually learn the course content and get a diploma at the end from us and get a job. And we also help them to get placed. We have a placement firm called Ask Talent Services, where we're placing these kids. We train these kids, assess them, and place them, right? So again, a focus on a complete value chain of training, assessment, and placement, matching to jobs. We also have our own business school called Tadammal Shahani Center for Management, where we've expanded into 6 cities around India, offering international MBAs from foreign universities, and we're rolling out other BBAs and other regular courses. And we're now in the process of launching a new impact fund where we will be investing in other skilling providers who provide employability and this thing. Because we realize is that there's a huge section of people who are providing skilling and job training for kids around India, but they don't get access to good funding either through debt or venture capital. But we want to fill that gap and be an impact investor in that space. So yeah, we across the whole value chain.
Great. And it's just like wonderful to hear that you're already covering every aspect of it rather than just focusing on one, so that it just completes a chain that's there in the education domain. And talking about the current time that we're in, the current pandemic, the COVID-19. So it's already disrupted a lot of educational spaces. So be it in terms of dissemination of education or even the learning outcomes that are coming out of it. And along with that, there's the new education policy that's come out, which focusing on new areas to be delivering education in a better way. So how do you think the domain of education is surviving under these reforms, or I would say situations that are occurring in the space? And how do you intend to probably leverage a few of those things that are coming out of it?
So I think my favorite quote from Albert Einstein was that in every difficulty lies opportunity, right? So in a way, is that we look at the difficulty of the last 1 year, there's been a massive opportunity because in 1 year, there's a perfect storm of disrupting conventional mindsets against new education models. I mean, as much as we've been trying for the last 20, 30, 40 years, schools have not changed, colleges have not changed. In fact, the joke goes out saying that if somebody who went to sleep 200 years ago came and woke up today, he wouldn't recognize the cars, he wouldn't recognize the technology, but he'd recognize the schools and colleges. Yeah, that is how education was done. So we firstly managed to break entrenched mindsets in education, made people realize that, look, there are other ways of educating. And secondly, the Indian government has finally woken up and said, look, we actually need to really build up the education system in this country to make sure that we get advantage of the demographic dividend. So in a way, the opportunity that now every education institution, every education provider has is to say, look, we will now discard old mindsets, and now the government is allowing us to do a lot more than what we could earlier. So the excuse of regulation is not there anymore. The excuse of entrenched mindset is not there anymore. So I think at this point, the sky's the limit. I think that this country has a chance to be actually a global hub of excellence in education, where we have international students coming in and coming to us for quality education instead of us sending students out into other countries to learn. And especially this is where the real excitement is. This is where
talking about the emphasis that you already talked about, that you lay on the actionable skills that are there, which are required by the industry for the students to be learning, so that when they're on job, they know what they need to start with. Right. So how is the group approaching onto providing those skills, and how has it transformed? Say, a lot of these would require an on-ground or in-person approach. So has that also transformed in the current times?
Yes. All right, so let me talk a bit about my research in student employability, right? So what we said is that let's understand what's the fundamental problem of employability. Even we took surveys around companies around the world, and we discovered that in spite of colleges' best efforts, not just in India, but even in the UK, US, Europe, and other countries, almost 75% of employers were not happy with the quality of graduates coming out. And obviously, if you have great colleges abroad, they can't say that, hey, the government's not letting them come up with great quality graduates. So we said, okay, let's understand what's the mismatch. Why are employers still not happy with the quality of graduates? So what we discovered was that there's no one definition of employability. When someone says, I want to employ the graduate, one employer could say, hey, I want a guy with the right attitude, so therefore I'll hire him. Another person said, I want someone with leadership potential. Somebody says, I want someone who'll just get the job done with the least amount of effort. There's no standard definition, right? So what we said is that let's take the old Peter Drucker phrase that what can be measured can be managed. So let's come up with a definition of employability using parameters that can be measured and can be developed, because only if you have parameters that can be developed at a large scale and measured can you change the education system. Because unfortunately right now the only measure you had of student quality was exams. There was no alternative measure. So we said, okay, let's create a measure of employability. So what we said is that across all industries, what we discovered that there are 5 things that every employer wants in a candidate. Every employer wants a candidate who can communicate well, who can work well in teams, who is proactive, who has a professional work ethic, and can solve problems. That's it, 5 things. Nobody wants a creative maverick with a lot of gyan. They want basically the guy who will get the job done, least amount of supervision, least amount of training. So we said, okay, look, these are the 5 parameters. So then we said, now that we know these parameters, let us measure these parameters in the students when they enter our programs. And as they go through our programs, we'll keep on measuring them to see how they develop on these 5 parameters when they exit. Now, this is the starting point. The second thing we told the student is that your ask benchmark, we call it ask benchmarks. Ask stands for attitude, skills, and knowledge benchmark. We will share your ask benchmark with the employer. That means that if you score 4 out of 10 on professionalism, and you go to employer and say, hey, I'm a great guy, I'll work hard. The employer says, hey, no, you score only 4 out of 10 on professionalism, so you're really not the right guy to hire. So the student knows that his or her scores on the ask benchmarks will affect their job prospects on graduation. So therefore, they have an incentive to develop themselves on these parameters, right? The second thing is that the way we've developed these parameters, we use a lot of behavioral science and data analytics. In fact, in a way, for example, teamwork, in the team working score, a lot of the team working score of a student is based on how they perform in group projects, and their fellow students will rank them. So the thing is, a student can fool their faculty, they can fool their parents, they can't fool their friends, right? So therefore, the team working score is an authentic representation of how well they perform in teams. What is great about from the behavioral aspect, if a student knows he scored badly on one team, he will make an effort to perform well on the other team, otherwise his score will go down. So therefore, it doesn't matter if his score is 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. The fact that the score makes him make an effort to contribute more to the team will make him a better team worker no matter what. So that has worked to us to a great extent. So we said that is the employability engine. So while we are teaching our long courses like MBA or BBA, or even short courses like banking diplomas or ITS or real estate diplomas, the same engine will develop the employability of the student as they go along. And the employer knows that when they hire a student, the student has verified personality traits which the employer understands and can be sure that, okay, look, when the student says he's a good team worker, the employer knows he's a good team worker, he's professional. So that is clear. So that has worked very well, and that's allowed us to come up with fantastic placement numbers. And most of our students, I think, tend to get higher salaries than most students in other areas, mainly because we focus on the employability aspect. In fact, to a little secret would be like most employers tell us, look, they say, look, I don't care if the person has any gyan or not. Give me the personality. So they say, look, give me a guy with the right personality, I can train him. But give me a guy with all the theory and no personality, can't do anything. The problem is that the majority of education institutions, not just in India, but even globally, just have focused on giving gyan and not developing the personality. And that is something that we're trying to change in our group.
Well, you brought up like two really important points out there, I would say. So one of the personality that everyone and anyone looks for, and that's really something that I would say the education system needs to focus more upon. And the second one of defining a problem, because that's, I would say, the starting point wherein you can actually be able to measure something at the end of it.
Correct.
Because if you can't define it, you can measure it, like you said.
Well, my undergrad is in engineering. So my engineering MBA education background, BE, MBA, and I've sort of combined that and
but then again, it just comes out as as beautifully as it could for the problem that we're currently in. And now talking about, like you mentioned, that even in the US or the other countries, the same problem and the same issues persist in terms of employability or education. So, but there still would be some models or methods or approaches that are successful, and some that you might also be drawing some inspiration from. So could you share a bit of those, and how are they working into your projects probably?
Yeah, sure. So the thing is, obviously, as a good educationist, you have to be able to collaborate and learn from each other. You can't be just learning stuff in a silo, right? So definitely the best methods of education technology we've been incorporating into our own system. We've taken a lot of learnings from other tech companies around the world and brought them into our models using mobile apps and things like that. Secondly, the model of flipped classroom is not just enough to actually measure students on employability. We need to develop them on these employability parameters. That means that we had to incorporate models of things like flipped classroom, where the student learns theory beforehand and comes to class, has a group discussion. There are things like peer learning groups where you actually are collaborating together to actually come up with a solved problem through shared experiences. Things like social constructivism. I mean, a lot of academic theory, basically. But the idea that we've taken the best, not just from the West, because one thing we need to be very clear, this I feel very strongly about, global education is not just US and UK. There's a lot of stuff that you can learn from, let's say, let's say China, from Southeast Asia, Africa, for example. There's a great word called Ubuntu, we're familiar with, right? So that talks about shared learning and shared resources, right? If you learn the theory of Ubuntu, how the African tribes work together and actually learn together, then you get the basics of collaborative social constructivism. So I think global education should be really global, not just whatever the the British and the Americans teach us. So yeah, so we constantly like to keep on learning. That's it, and we probably will never learn enough. Learning
Yep.
is not in college. Learning is life.
That it is, and the more you learn about like I would say the other cultures, the more nuances that you get into your own personality. I would say that just enriches you as a person as a whole, and then also education can take away a lot of things.
Absolutely true.
Now, coming to the end of the conversation, so what are some of these initiatives that you're working on? So one is the hedge fund that you mentioned. So how is that shaping up, and what are you looking at in terms of implementing the same? And are there any other initiatives or areas or thematic things that you need to focus more on in coming days?
Okay, so well, I think starting with the impact fund, right? So, I mean that's something that is a very new initiative. It's still very early stages. What we said is basically when you're looking at other people in the skilling space, there's a huge amount of funding available for skilling and employability. In fact, you may be familiar with the United Nations SDG goals. So SDG 4 is actually got a huge amount of interest, especially they think that that's one of the key things that helps the country grow. So SDG 4, we said, okay, is there basically skillers or people who are providing job skills and all, not just in terms of providing good outcomes, there's also a concept called IRIS Plus standards. IRIS basically is used by the Global Impact Investing Network, which measures the impact of any investment. So for example, so when we look at any company to invest in, we say, okay, fine, how are they performing against the IRIS Plus standard? It's not just ESG norms, but also in terms of for every dollar put in, what's the impact that they've done to the community in terms of, let's say, how many students are they training, how many students have they trained, and compared to how many jobs have they got, where's the jump in students' family income from this to this, all these measurable standards that we share with our potential funders, number one. Number two, we also say is that most skilling guys may not necessarily be people that you can invest through venture capital, because most VCs will look at pure edtech plays or people will get a 100x return, which is frankly not 99% of the market is not that, right? And all due respect to the edtech unicorns. But however, these guys are great companies. I mean, they are profitable, they are making money, but they need help scaling up. So what we say is that we can provide, let's say, a combination of debt or equity or structured fund that allows them to grow, but there's a return to impact investors. But more importantly, because we understand the skilling space ourselves, we have our own edtech platform, we have our own CRM. So we will actually enable these guys to get more tech enabled. We will build up their CRM system. We will help them to move their courses from offline to online, help them build up their scale. So there may be a great player in the northeast part of India. How do we help him scale up into other parts of India using the same model, right? So there are not these great regional players who just need to grow. Another thing is that there are a lot of these new entrepreneurs who want to help out, but they just don't have the capability, and we sort of want to pick them up and get these early stage guys up again with a combination of not just pure equity, but some debt, some technology, a combination of things. Get them access to some of our international partners as well. Build up the business. The idea really is because we understand the skilling and impact space very well, we actually have that deep operational knowledge and then understanding of how this works. So therefore, we're not just classic VC to put in money and hope for the best. It's like we actually do that. So that's a combination of what we're doing. And of course, my other big part is Sage Foundation, where we are helping a lot of these poor kids get jobs. And I think that we're scaling up. That is pure grant capital. So the Impact Fund is impact capital for skillers. The Sage Foundation is grant funding for these poor kids in rural areas and all who actually want to get jobs in language. That's another thing of ours. And of course, Ask Careers itself is just growing leaps and bounds without much effort.
Wonderful, wonderful. And that just brings us to the close of the conversation. It was amazing talking to you today and learning about how the Shahani Group is actually not just helping their own, I would say, employability, skilling and other initiative, but also raising it for everyone else in the industry as a whole. Because if everyone grows, eventually everyone grows.
Well, we hope to actually in the way the education system is done, and we have that ambition to build the careers around 1 million kids by 2030. So we have very ambitious goals. I'm sure we'll try our best to achieve it.